Music, along with any artistic medium like movies or books, is so interesting to me in part because what we think is good or bad taste can change wildly depending upon the year and cultural zeitgeist at the moment. Albums that were received well at the time, we may realize weren't so good in hindsight, and music that we thought was terrible, we may actually end up liking 5, 10, 15 years later. And I don't mean enjoying in an ironic way, the way we may enjoy our favorite trashy Disney comedy from our childhood, looking at You, Wendy Wu, Homecoming Warrior, and Camp Rock. I mean, realizing that something is genuinely actually good and was critically overlooked at time of release. I remember being introduced to the Millionaires' EP, Just Got Paid, Let's Get Laid, amazing title, probably, God, 6 or 7 years ago at this point. Through this list I found on rateyourmusic.com, dedicated to covering some of the worst albums of all time. And I remember listening to it and agreeing it was garbage because I was a teen who knew nothing about music besides saying I liked or didn't like, what made me look cool. And in hindsight, I made a crucial mistake that many people who are overconfident in their ability to evaluate art and music make. And that mistake is that your taste is actually not objective. And to expand on that, I don't think you can hate art purely because you don't like it. And along with that, something someone once said to me that I always carry with me, what they said was that sometimes you are not the target audience. And that doesn't mean that you can't evaluate something that you're not the target audience of. You know, adults often, critically review children's movies, and I think they are perfectly capable of doing that. But you have to remember that your enjoyment of something might not, be decided by whether or not something was made for you. Along with that, it's also important to remember that we carry a lot of biases with us when we engage with a piece of art. And I don't mean racial or gender bias, which of course people do bring with them, but I'm really talking about biases like, did you already like an artist or dislike them? Did you already like or dislike a movie director or an actor or actress? That oftentimes influences whether or not you are willing to engage with something artistically. For example, if you already dislike Taylor Swift, you're carrying that bias with you into her newest album whenever that comes out, and so you're probably not going to like that. If you already love Taylor Swift, you'll probably love her album. So, keeping that in mind, that's why I think that the Millionaires never stood a chance when they released this. They were a band with three scene MySpace girls who have the giant hair and outlandish clothes that were a serve, mind you. They were making pop music, and this was still when pop music was not cool. And the vocal delivery is on the more annoying side, but I still think is very good. It's bratty, rapish. It's not really like rapping, but it's like spoken word talk singing. You would, if you listen to it, you'll know what I'm talking about.
Jaeger, vodka, Ethan, whiskey. Damn that shit, don't be a pussy. Jesus Christ. If you do, you're weak. That's right.
And the lyrics were, focusing on drinking, having sex, partying, and mind you, are very ahead of their time in a way. I think that we're actually a bit privileged now with how outwardly horny a lot of women are in their music. Shoutouts Cardi B, Megan Thee Stallion, Aisha Erotica, Charlie XCX kind of, Billie Eilish kind of. I mean, we need to remember this came out in 2009. This was when Obama just became president. This was right after the financial crisis, and it was not common at all, really, for women to talk about how much they like drinking and fucking in their music. I mean, Kesha was releasing her music like starting this year, later in the year. Aisha Erotica wasn't in for 7 more years, and even Slut Pop, which I thought was a horrible EP, Slut Pop didn't come out until 13 years after the release of Just Got Paid, Let's Get Late. I did, while I was editing, just want to clarify the point I'm making here. I'm mostly just trying to say that it was not common in pop music for women to talk about their sexuality and sex in general in such an explicit and direct way. It was happening in other genres at the time and beforehand. You had Lil Kim, Kia, artists in that sphere who were very explicitly talking about sex from the women's point of view, but it was not common in pop music, and I would still say it's not common in that much to really talk about sex. I mean, that did change a bit later in the mid 2010s with Nicki Minaj and her song Anaconda, Doja Cat with Tia Tamera and Juicy, but still it's not as common as we see in other genres, even while there has been some crossover, say, with songs like WAP with Megan Thee Stallion and Cardi B and other Cardi and Megan songs that are very sexually explicit. So I was just really wanting to give credit to the Millionaires here for doing something that was more, I guess, I don't want to use the word revolutionary, but that is the word I will use here. All right, take it away, me from the past. Men were not ready for that. And I mean, mind you, come on, like look at this album cover. It men straight men are not going to perceive you well for this cover, but I think it's cunt. I mean, come on. This is hilarious. It's great. I love this cover, but probably didn't do them any favors with men, which I don't think they cared about, but I mean, that's probably why they got so much hate. I do want to talk about the music for a second because when I re-listen to this, like actually listening critically and engaging with the music, I was surprised at how much substance there is musically. The production is the star of the show in my mind. It's detailed and complex and really elevates the material here. And what I think helps is that there was a very clear idea of what the Millionaires wanted this EP to sound like. And there's a lot of continuity among the songs that really just helps everything come together in a very cohesive piece. A song like Alcohol has this 80s electro vibe that almost makes it sound like it could have been on an old aerobics tape if it didn't have the lyrical content.
Give you my alcohol. Let's get fucked up.
I Like Money has this acoustic guitar hook that I find to be really creative and adds some texture to the song, even if I'm not sure it entirely comes together.
Spray it, make it big. Your hair's so big, it's like a wig. Your skirt is short, your top is low. Speed it up, it's way too slow. You like it when
But I still like the attempt. Talk Shit, I feel like comes in a really nice place in the track list. They actually, all the songs are sort of the same tempo up until Talk Shit, which slows it down a bit and I think prevents things from getting too samey.
just comes easy. See you try and fucking be. Let me see your bandmate #1. Back up, bitch, you're fucking done.
And so while I do enjoy the EP and the campy tongue-in-cheek vibe they bring, the final song, I was surprised at how much I genuinely love it. The production here is so crunchy, if that makes sense. And the chorus, I was surprised at how triumphant it is.
I move it. We like it. I move it.
This background chord progression, along with the vocal effects they put on the chorus, just brings such a joyous vibe and energy. And then the song is 5.5 minutes long, which is ambitious to start off with, but then the outro takes up like half the song. And it's a great outro. It's instrumental entirely almost, and it almost sounds like proto future bass. It's a fantastic closer to the EP and just puts a nice cherry on top of everything. With all of that in mind, I do understand if people don't like this EP. The Millionaires' voices are annoying, and considering how many times I listened to this project in preparation for this video, they were definitely a bit grating. But I don't want to say that the hate stems from misogyny, but I mean, it does a bit, along with the fact that they're so heavily associated with the MySpace scene culture. The hate, I think, does stem from the fact that they are women. And if you read the reviews and listen to how people describe them, it it's misogyny. I mean, let's be real. One thing in particular that I think aggravates me when looking at criticism of this, well, so there's two trains of thought. You can understand that something is a bit or a joke and just not like the bit or the joke. And I don't necessarily mean because it's offensive. You can recognize that something is tongue in cheek and just still not like it. And that's fine. And I respect that. But I am continuously stunned at seemingly how many men are not willing to give women the benefit of the doubt when it comes to a joke. And what I mean by that is that they will see a woman making what is clearly a joke and just not get it. And it surprises me every time. It genuinely does. And it's not that I think this EP is a joke. I think the Millionaires are very clearly serious about the music they are putting out. I mean, it is clearly dance, pop, club music, but I think they genuinely like their own music. They put this out and they were like, this shit rocks. But lyrically, I mean, come on. Can anyone look at the lyrics and take this seriously? It is so clearly silly and playful in nature. Just listen to the chorus of Just Got Paid, Let's Get Laid,
Cause I just got paid. Let's get laid. Cause I just got paid.
or how they say Let's Get Fucked Up on the song Alcohol,
Come get fucked up. Give me my alcohol. Let's get fucked up. ALCOHO.
or how they call out moms and dads who hate their music.
To you moms and dads, you hate our shit. What a drag. Cause I'm the one who fucks your son.
This is hilarious and it's extremely obviously tongue in cheek and self aware. Need we forget, I mean, a decade later, that this is what we would all love about women in hyperpop? I think that's in part why I wanted to revisit this, is just that here is a project that has all of the traits that we love about music from this past decade, doing it before anyone else and not really getting the credit that they deserve. And I think that's sad. I do think that's sad, but unfortunately, I can't change the behavior of men from more than a decade ago. But I did want to bring attention to this project because I think it's always important to recognize the people who did it first. And while the Millionaires might not have done it first, they did get the most shit for doing exactly what hyperpop artists did, especially lyrically, 10 years later. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, do a little quick review of their EP and just recognize some artists that were a bit forgotten. And I do have a couple others planned, which I hopefully will upload soon once I start on them. But yeah, stay tuned.